Good morning, everybody. In 1636, the General Court of Massachusetts, the legislature, established a new college. And it was 3 years later on this date, March 13, that the name of that college was changed to Harvard. As the 13 colonies clung to the eastern seaboard and tried to get established, there were a lot of issues initially that needed to be worked on. One of them was roadways. The roads during the colonial times were terrible. It was actually easier to ship something by water to Britain than it was to take a road, say, from Boston down to Philadelphia. But taverns did grow up along these roads, and these are early meeting places. Some people think early examples of some kind of democracy, because voting often happened at these. And the oldest one in the country, according to some, is in Newport, Rhode Island, the White Horse Tavern from 1673. Other places claim to be the oldest too, but this one's worth a visit if you're in Newport. It actually was easier to go long distances on river than some short distances on roads, so river travel became a big deal. So what about religion? Well, the Church of England was very common. Virginia south, this is King's Chapel in Boston, which was Anglican. And north of Pennsylvania, you tended to get congregational churches. This is the kind of church you see where I live in this part of Massachusetts with the steeple and the town common. But there was a lot going on religiously, and this map reminds us that in addition to Anglicans and Congregationals, you've got Lutherans, Presbyterians, Baptists, Roman Catholics, and Jewish folk. So 1610 is a crucial year for the colonies because this is when tobacco starts to be grown commercially, and this is an early moneymaker for those colonies that were barely hanging on. When the Pilgrims came in 1620 and brought that piety to the New World, this is going to influence our story in that when Harvard was founded, it was founded first to train ministers, as were many of the early colleges. Down in Virginia, we have the first library from 1620. So early on, the colonial people are showing themselves to be literate and also tolerant. So this is New Amsterdam, founded by the Dutch in 1624. Became New York, but it said, look, anybody can live here as long as you behave. So New Amsterdam became knee-deep in political and religious refugees, which is a template for our country, right? We welcome people. Now, over in the Boston area, in Quincy, some people set up a maypole in Marymount, and this horrified the Pilgrim leaders. But this is an example of kind of rambunctiousness in the colonies. And also freedom of thought. So here's Roger Williams, who left Massachusetts to go down to Rhode Island because he wanted to have a colony where you could believe whatever you wanted. And it's the same year that he leaves Massachusetts that Harvard is established, although it was simply known as the New College, again to train ministers. But this is the beginning of Harvard, and John Harvard's statue is in Harvard Yard, but this isn't John Harvard. Nobody really knows what he looks like. But he did donate a bunch of books to New College, and they named it after him. A couple years later, the first printing press is established by Stephen Day. So another reminder that colonial Americans are going to be a literate group. Here's another example of toleration, 1649. Maryland, which was started by Catholics, has an act of toleration as part of a movement toward religious freedom, which is important to us. Here's a shilling from Massachusetts, 1652. So how do you unite a bunch of colonies when each has their own coinage? So this is a debate that's going to be coming up later. Down in Long Island, Lady Deborah Moody was the first woman to vote at a town meeting in 1655, an early example of women's rights. So by the time we get to our second college, William and Mary, pictured here, 1693 in Williamsburg, Virginia, it's pretty clear that the American colonies are going to have lots of energy, lots of dissension, lots of drama.